Amen. Let's give it up for Jeff.
What's up, y'all? Can y'all hear me in the back? Glory. Hey, look, my name's Jeff. I'm a believer in recovery from drug addiction, and I still struggle with a whole bunch of stuff.
Good job.
I'll start by saying that I come from as normal a family as everybody else. That's right, they're completely screwed up. Most of my family life growing up was great, but actually my father was an alcoholic who fought in Korea and Vietnam, and that presented problems of its own. When my father drank, he was physically abusive to my mother, and he was mentally abusive to us kids. I have a brother, and I did have two sisters. But one passed away in 2001, and they're nothing at all like me. They all went to college and into the business world. Me, I grew up as a heavy kid that was picked on and scared. In the summer of 1976, at 13 years old, I drank my first beer, and I smoked marijuana for the first time. Well, at last, I was accepted by some cool kids. So I started drinking and getting high on a regular basis. I also got into weightlifting and boxing in high school, and I decided that I would never be picked on again. So fighting, drinking, getting high became normal for me in my teenage years. Well, at 19, I joined the Army, and I learned that drinking and fighting were all I wanted to do when I wasn't at work. Soon I was shot in the leg in a bar fight. This took me off my feet for quite a while. As I recuperated, I again put on weight. Well, at 5'8", over 300 pounds, I didn't fit in with the other soldiers, but I had bought a motorcycle for cheap transportation to work, and I spent a lot of time at the biker bars. Well, before long, I realized that the motorcycle clubs, they accepted almost anybody, especially violent drug and alcohol abusers. Again, I found a place where I fit in. I was big, I was angry, I was violent. In the biker world, the meanest, nastiest guy in the bunch ran the show. So I worked at being that guy. I physically abused my wife, and I would get into bloody fights with my dad anytime we drank together. I was involved in serious criminal activity, and it wasn't long before I became the president of the club. Well, I was in trouble with the Army constantly, so I soon went AWOL and ended up with a dishonorable discharge. I spent the next 15 years as the president of two different motorcycle clubs. Well, in 1993, I met my second wife. She had a 6-month-old daughter. I fell in love with both of them. Slowly became more responsible, eventually adopting my little girl. When she was around 4 years old, I decided I needed to leave the motorcycle club, because I didn't want to die in some stupid bar fight. Cause her to grow up without a daddy. Well, unfortunately, I left the club, but I didn't leave the lifestyle. Alcohol, drugs, and violence, just who I was. 1998, my daughter was 5, my wife was done. She filed for divorce. Now at this point, I got worse. But the one thing that kept me from slipping off the deep end completely was a misplaced sense of responsibility to my daughter. I thought I was a good dad. I really didn't know what that meant. I spent every other weekend with her. But I took her to the bars with me at night. And at 6 years old, she was forced to experience violent behavior that would have been disturbing to most adults. I used her to meet and pick up women. I even rode her around on the interstate on my motorcycle when I was drunk. I can remember thinking how cute she was, carrying around an empty Jim Beam bottle and a cigarette, acting like daddy. I bragged about how I spent so much time with her. But the truth is, I was completely unfit. I should have been locked up. Now, at this time of my life, I was a functioning addict. I owned a successful business. I had a beach house, boats, trucks, trailers, motorcycles. I thought I was living the dream. Finally, Christmas of 2001. The first Christmas after my big sister died, I tried crack cocaine, and I was almost instantly addicted. I quickly went through all my savings. I was able to convince my parents that my business was failing and that I needed financial help. They thought they were helping me by loaning me money and credit cards. But within another year, I caused them to go into a bankruptcy. I'd lost it all, including my daughter. Her mother had moved and taken her and wouldn't let me or my family know where she was. You know, my last memory of my daughter as a little girl was her buying me an 8-pack of cigarette lighters for my birthday. I thought I had everybody fooled. It'll be 6 years before I spoke to her again. Now at this point, I came back to Fayetteville, North Carolina, where my parents lived. I continued to do whatever I needed to do to get high. I robbed drug dealers often, and soon there were a lot of people that wanted me dead. My parents, they finally convinced me to enter treatment, but I did it only to please them. And I was soon having drugs delivered to me in the treatment center. It wasn't long before I was found out and I was kicked out. But again, I was able to convince my parents it wasn't the dope that had got me thrown out, but that I had just broken some rules. And again, they helped me get a place to live, a vehicle, and some tools. Well, I pawned the tools. I sold the furniture. And I would talk my dad into buying me groceries that I'd take back to the grocery store for the cash to spend on crack. Then finally Christmas of that year, I snuck into my parents' house. I stole the $100 bills that my mother intended as Christmas gifts for all the family members. This wasn't discovered until Christmas morning when they all opened the empty envelopes. When my mother realized what I'd done, she wanted nothing more to do with me. She told me she'd buy me a one-way ticket anywhere in the country. She didn't want me in North Carolina any longer. I'll never forget, my mother gave me a card to carry in my pocket that had her contact information on it so she'd at least be notified when my body was found. At this point, I was on the streets in Miami, Florida. I was robbing people and stealing to get high. I realized again that I would soon be dead or in prison. So after a month on the streets there, I called my parents again. And they made a deal with me that if I would commit to a 1.5-year treatment program, they'd let me come back to North Carolina. So I entered treatment again for all the wrong reasons. However, it was impossible to get drugs into this place. So I soon decided I was going to quit using, at least while I was there. Now this place, it was a Christian rehab. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind any of that Jesus talk, man. I was way too smart for that. About 4 months into my stay, my old girlfriend called me and told me she'd inherited some money and she wanted me to leave treatment early and come to Minnesota. So I did. I left treatment more than a year early, never having taken my recovery seriously, never working the 12 steps or finding a sponsor, but feeling as though I was cured from my crack addiction. It'd be okay to drink and use other drugs. And when I got to Minnesota, we bought a motorhome and traveled the country, and we did this for about 6 months, partying the entire time. And as we were traveling, we stopped in Nashville, Tennessee, and decided to buy a bar. Now look, I'm gonna give all you guys some free advice. Never leave treatment and buy a bar. We opened a filling station, a biker bar. And again, I thought I was living a dream. Booze, dope, prostitutes, gambling, violence. And I owned the joint. And it would all take me down one of the darkest paths I'd ever been on in my life. As I was surrounded by that darkness, God brought me a ray of light, literally a ray of light. His name was Doc Ray. The one thing I never expected to find in the bar was a preacher. Isaiah 59:1 says, "Surely the arm of the Lord is not too short to save, nor his ear too dull to hear." Amen. Doc rode a motorcycle, and he hung out at the biker bars ministering to us as we needed him. He was really careful not to force religion on us. He just made sure that we knew that he cared. And he was always there in times of crisis, offering prayer and friendship. Doc became a good friend of mine, although I wasn't buying into any of his Jesus talk either. It was really clear that he cared about me and the other bikers in the bar. Now, within 6 months of buying the bar, I was back to smoking crack. I lost everything, became a homeless addict. My girlfriend left. I lost contact with Doc Ray and every other decent person in my life. For 2.5 years, I was homeless. I ate out of dumpsters, slept under bridges, crawl spaces under houses. I was in and out of jail. In 2006, I was arrested over 30 times. I stole cars, I robbed people, I wrote worthless checks, I shoplifted. And I was always able to lie to my father, talk him into sending me money behind my mother's back, which almost caused them to divorce. My mother told me one time she hoped one of us died soon, her or me. She just couldn't take it anymore. Then on March 1st of 2007, I'd been on a binge for days. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning when I ran out of dope, but I still had money in my pocket, and so I had to have more. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, in a ragged, falling apart borrowed truck with expired tags, knowing there were warrants for my arrest and driving with no license, I headed into one of the worst dope spots in Nashville, Tennessee. And of course, I was pulled over and arrested. By the way, when I was arrested that night, I weighed 108 pounds. I was covered with open sores due to staph infection. You can still see the white scars all over my face and neck and arms. But going to jail that morning was one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life. I was arrested on a probation violation, and because of the nature of this charge, my dad, he couldn't bond me out this time. I was gonna have to sit in jail and wait to see a judge. When I did finally get out, my dad had come all the way to Nashville, Tennessee to help me again. I had nothing except the clothes I was wearing. My dad helped me get clothes, a vehicle, a place to live. I just wanted him to leave. I just wanted to leave so I could get high. But then he did leave. After he left, it hit me. I thought, what if next time I walk out of jail and he's done? And there's nobody there for me. I had what we call in recovery a moment of clarity. And I made a decision to quit getting high. But now I had to figure out how to do that right. Something that hit me was the first time my father couldn't bond me out, I hit bottom. I sometimes wonder how much sooner I might have had this moment of clarity if I weren't being enabled by my parents. It was all done in love. They thought they were keeping me alive. The truth is, they almost loved me to death. Now, as I made this decision to quit using, I tried to think of anybody I knew in Nashville that didn't get high. The only person I could think of was that biker preacher, Doc Ray. I looked up his number and called him. He was so happy to hear from me. He invited me to church. I accepted, but I still believed the church was just a weekly inconvenience where a bunch of holy people got together and talked about how good they were and how bad the rest of us were. Y'all know it. You know what? But I knew I had to get around some different kind of people. I showed up that next Sunday, hair down at my waist, white t-shirt and blue jeans. And I was waiting for the judgment. I was counting on the judgment. I didn't want to be there. But it never came. Those people were so nice to me. They loved on me. They treated me with respect. So I made a decision to come back the next week. Now that next week, I had no idea what was in store for me. It's kind of hard to describe. I didn't come forward for an altar call. I didn't raise my hand. But I can tell you on April 22nd, 2007, I had a real life experience with Jesus Christ, and my life was changed. Psalm 42, he lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and the muck. He He set my feet on a rock, and he gave me a firm place to stand.
Amen.
Now, within 3 weeks of my salvation, I attended a church dinner, and I sat by a couple I'd never met, Jim and Deb, and we began to talk. I told them a little bit about my story and wanted to meet some other Christians. And they told me about a ministry they went to on Friday nights at another church called Celebrate Recovery. They invited me the following Friday, but I remember telling them about Jesus had delivered me from my addiction. I didn't need a recovery program. Well, they finally convinced me that I'd be able to make some Christian friends there, so I agreed to go. But that first night, man, I was terrified to walk into that place. Me, the guy that robbed drug dealers at gunpoint, I was scared to death. But once inside, and I was amazed. I remember how freeing it was to be able to attend a share group and to listen to others like me. I realized I wasn't alone in my struggle, and I was able to be honest about myself without shame or embarrassment. I realized I didn't have to be perfect to be a Christian. The love, acceptance, and freedom I felt at Celebrate Recovery was amazing. Yeah. And I would leave there on Friday nights, and I would just think all week about getting back to Celebrate Recovery. Within 2 months of attending, I began working the Christ Center 12 steps, and I found a sponsor. I committed fully to the program and realized that the Lord had delivered me from the dope. Man, there was so much more than to just stop getting high. The 12 steps, they took me through a healing process. They taught me how to live sober, how to handle this world as it is, not as I would have it. I did what my sponsor told me to do. I was accountable. I was honest. And I took correction well. I began to work the 12 steps and to apply the principles of my life on a daily basis. Wow, what a change in my life. I began passing out Bibles in drug neighborhoods, helping feed the homeless, volunteering at my church, and any other kind of service work I could find to do. In Christmas of that year, 2007, I'd been sober for 8 months. And my mother wanted to see me for the first time in 4 years. After a short visit, she asked me to move back home to North Carolina. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to God for this time as a sober Christian with my parents. Finally being the son God intended me to be. Well, shortly after moving back to North Carolina with a year of sobriety, I began attending a church there, and I met the senior pastor. He was excited about what I was doing and what I wanted to do. So I began seeking others to help me start a Celebrate Recovery ministry. Being a leader in this ministry is truly what God has called me to do. I came to know my wife at Celebrate Recovery. My daughter showed up at our wedding. I was able to hug her for the first time in 6 years. I've made friendships that I know will last a lifetime. I've had people I've grown up with who I've not seen in years find healing and recovery and now attend church with me. I've had so many damaged relationships restored, repaired. I've seen changed lives. It's real Jesus stuff. Yeah. You can read about it in the New Testament, or you can come to Sober Recovery and check it out in person, right? I've learned that it's not about me and the blessings that come from doing for others. And remember all that stuff I lost. Glory to God, He's a Lord of restoration. He's given me back my family. I was able to comfort my father daily during a long hospital stay, which ended with his death. And I was able to pray with him to receive Christ before he died. Oh, I spent 8 sober years, loving on my mother. She could count on me. And I was there for her until she took her last breath. And I'll never forget the day she told me how proud she was of the man that I've become. mother died tragically while I was in my addiction, but now she has a father. God has restored our relationship. She's forgiven me. She even brags about me being her daddy. She's having my first grandbaby next month. I have a beautiful Christian wife with a wonderful new family that love me. I have amazing friends. I own a successful business. And glory to God, I have 3 Harley Davidsons. Priorities in your recovery are very important. God has used me in many ways over the last 12 years. In 2008, I started Celebrate Recovery at Destiny Now and served as the ministry leader there for 7 years. In 2010, I came on board the Celebrate Recovery Southeastern team as a North Carolina state representative, and I served in that role for 7 years. In 2011, I finished school and I was ordained as a pastor. I've come to realize that my decision to accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior has changed not only my life, but the lives of my family, my friends, and so many others. God has turned my mess into his message, and I've been blessed to be able to share my story all over the country in many different venues. In the fall of 2011, I entered a casting call contest for a role in the movie Home Run. Well, I won the contest, and I appear in the movie as the Little League umpire. Through that experience, God has opened a new door of ministry for me in the acting world. I've been in several other movies and TV shows. God is using me as a witness, both in front of and behind the cameras.
Amen.
Now look, since accepting Christ, life is amazing, but it's not perfect, right? In April of 2013, my wife and I separated because we couldn't seem to get along. You see, we married soon after meeting. It didn't take us long to realize we just weren't much alike. I tell you, we weren't ready to give up on our marriage, though. But I'm so grateful to my Celebrate Recovery Forever family that didn't judge us or condemn us. They just supported us and encouraged us through all of this. We sought help by way of a Christian counselor. I'll tell you guys what, it took a lot more than prayer. It took work. It took commitment. And then the miracle happened. We began to apply the principles of recovery to our marriage. And Celebrate Recovery showed me that I couldn't fix or blame Pamela. I could only work on my part. My character defects. God did a work of healing and restoration in our marriage as we both began to take responsibility rather than blaming one another. Today we still have issues, but we're learning to accept the things in each other that we cannot change and to change the things in ourselves that we can. In 2016, after putting the biker lifestyle behind me for 9 years, associating that lifestyle with all my bad behavior, God told me that it's okay to be a biker as long as I ride for his sake, right? During the following weeks, God used me to start the Broken Chains, and we're bikers and motorcycle enthusiasts who found hope and healing in Jesus Christ through the ministry of Celebrate Recovery, helping others to realize that change is possible. In 2017, I was given the opportunity to share my story at the Celebrate Recovery Summit, and that was a real dream come true for me. But how many of you guys know it's hard to dream big enough for God? John Baker, the founder of Celebrate Recovery, also announced that Broken Chains would become the official motorcycle arm of the Celebrate Recovery ministry. In the last 2.5 years, Broken Chains has grown to around 2,000 members in 48 states, Canada, Norway, Mexico. See, we're an army of hope dealers. We're motorcycle missionaries sharing the good news that change is possible. Share it with people we don't run into at church.
Amen.
Share it with people at gas stations and hotels and restaurants. There's a hurting world out there, and they need to know about Celebrating Recovery. You know, I'm so grateful to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for my salvation. And I'm grateful for Celebrating Recovery that helps me to grow closer to my full potential by applying the principles I've learned in my life every day. 12 years later, you find me at Celebrating Recovery every week, every single week, because I still need to be here. Right? You see, recovery is a decision followed by a process. I'm going to give you a free nugget here, man. That decision without the process, it's not getting you too far, I promise. Since I made the decision to quit using 12 years ago, I've gone through the illness and death of my mother and my father. I've gone through a marriage separation, a cancer diagnosis and radiation treatments. I've dealt with despair, anger, and frustration. But check this out, I'm sober today. And I'm sober today because I stay plugged into this process. And I'm going to be okay.
Yes.
You see, I don't have to turn to crack cocaine to deal with my problems anymore. I got all you guys, right? I got a forever family all over the world. And I get to meet Jesus in every hug, every smile, every encouraging word. Today, one day at a time, I am living the dream. 4,407 days ago, all I want to do is quick and high. That's all I wanted to do. I could never planned or dream what God has done in my life since. My life verse goes something like this, Genesis 50:20. What the enemy meant for my harm, God meant for my good. To accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Look, I don't know if you guys are already plugged into a ministry or starting one, but I want to encourage you to plug into this. I want to encourage you to start this in your communities because change is possible. It's possible, man. I know it is because it happened to me. You see, I used to be a hopeless dope addict. Now I'm a dopeless hope addict.